And weighing in on Duterte's confirmation of charges hearing, we have with us retired Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. Good evening, Justice. Welcome once again to The Big Story.
Good evening. Good evening to our viewers.
Attorney Gilbert Andres quoted from the Supreme Court Notice of Resolution in 2017. You were with the court at that time, Justice?
That is correct.
And, this notice of resolution was also quoted by the defense. What do you make of how each side picked excerpts from that decision of the Supreme Court?
Well, they can cherry pick what they think will support their position. But in that resolution of the court cited the annual PNP report saying that the PNP reporting to the nation, to the president, that about 20,000 people, a little over 20,000 people have been killed in the war on drugs. And that's an official publication, official report to the president. That was taken from the website of the Office of the President.
And so, what do you think of both sides so far? Who made a better argument?
Well, the prosecution very clearly presented an overwhelming case to proceed with the trial. The evidence that they intend to present, which they cited, are, I think, more than sufficient to take this case to the next step, to the trial proper.
And in the case of Attorney Kaufman, did he poke any holes at the case of the prosecution?
No, I don't think he did. He was saying that the president was just joking, but we all know that the president repeated these very statements in the hearings at the Senate and at the House, and he repeated these statements under oath. So you cannot say that he was joking because it was under oath. It was a formal proceeding.
And do you think, Justice Carpio, that all three charges will, in fact, be confirmed, or are some charges or arguments made for the charges stronger than others?
Well, I think they will all be confirmed. The evidence that was listed and will be presented by the prosecution are simply overwhelming, and it does not. The list of evidence does not even include the confession under oath by former President Duterte before the Senate and House hearings.
There was much debate and back and forth about the word neutralize and what it really meant.
Yes, well, if you talk to the military, neutralize means to kill. If you talk to the police, neutralize means to kill. And because of that PNP circular to neutralize the drug pushers and drug addicts, thousands of these people were killed extrajudicially. So it was written, and the result was death, extrajudicial killings.
Was it sufficient, Justice, for them to present that circular about the Oplan double barrel and Oplan Tokhang when they said that that did not really connect the dots to President Duterte?
Well, President Duterte said kill, kill, kill. He said pag lumaban, patayin ninyo. Pag hindi lumaban, bigyan ninyo ng baril para lumaban. So he cannot disassociate himself from the war on drugs. That is his flagship project.
Justice Carpio, I wanted to get your thoughts on the co-perpetrators. They were mentioned quite a bit also over the past 4 days. Do you think that it's only a matter of time before cases are also filed against some of them maybe?
Well, you mean warrants of arrest? Yes, that will be automatic. If you are made a co-perpetrator, the warrant of arrest should be issued. But they will publicize that, they will announce that when the co-perpetrator is arrested.
Well, Senator Bato has been waiting for that. In fact, he's been in hiding and now faces an ethics case in the Senate. But the warrant of arrest has not been forthcoming.
No, you cannot say that because they will not publicize it until they arrest the person.
And a lot
So the reason why Senator Bato is not showing up because he believes the warrant of arrest is there already.
Another reason that his attorney, Israelito Torreon, gave us when we spoke to him here about why Senator Bato has not made himself available is because he's also waiting for the Supreme Court to make a ruling to clarify kung ano ba talagang gagawin. Dadaan ba sa local courts or hindi? In your opinion, Justice Carpio, has the Supreme Court actually given enough answer to that?
Right. And if I may add, Sean and Justice, the Senate also wants a resolution, to pass a resolution asking that the local courts prevail before, an arrest warrant is, served.
Well, on the first question, I think the Supreme Court said that unless Senator Bato can show a search warrant, then it will be premature. So I think that was the decision of the court. And in the case of the Senate resolution, it cannot amend the law, the Republic Act 9851 on the Philippine International Humanitarian Law, which authorizes the government to surrender an accused or a respondent to an international tribunal or to prosecute that accused here in the Philippines. There is a law, and until it is declared unconstitutional, it can be implemented.
I'd like to ask you, Justice, your thoughts while watching the proceedings, because there has been much debate also about whether this should have been heard in the Philippines. And does it sadden you that, we have to rely on an international court to get justice for the victims of the drug war?
Up to now, 3 years after Duterte left, not a single case has been filed against Duterte or the co-perpetrators. There has been no preliminary investigation, no case filed in court. That means that the Philippine authorities are unable or unwilling.
But those are two different things.
That's why ICC took over.
But Justice, those are two different things. Unwilling and unable are different. Do you get a sense that it's more an unwillingness rather than an inability to?
Well, unable means at that time the president was immune from civil or criminal suits, so nobody can file a case against him. That's why there was a constitutional prohibition to sue the president. After he left office, no case was also filed.
What does that say about the state of, justice in the country, our justice system?
That's why the ICC is there, just in case there is a failure by any of the states to prosecute or investigate people who should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. That's precisely why we have that ICC.
Some quarters are also suggesting justice to amend, maybe make some amendments to RA 9851. That is our law on international humanitarian cases. Do you think it is time that we update that law, RA 9851, and maybe even consider rejoining the ICC?
Well, I think it's better just rejoin the ICC because we left the ICC by just the act of the president alone. Before you can ratify a treaty under the Constitution, there must be consent by the Senate. So we became a member of ICC by act of the president and consent by the Senate.
Can we still question
But the president alone this time, President Duterte, withdrew without the consent of the Senate. That's the big problem there. Because he was interested in protecting himself.
Yes. Yeah.
And can we not
So
just...
I think we should rejoin.
So it should come from the president, President BBM, and then the Senate should ratify this. The signal should come from Malacanang.
Yeah, to remove all doubts, the president can sign again the Rome Statute, and that will be ratified by the Senate. The Senate will give its consent.
And if in
So
fact...
there will be no question.
And if in fact, Justice, that the former President Duterte unilaterally, took us out of the ICC, or why did no one question that? Or is it too late for somebody to question that it was not actually ratified by the Senate?
It was actually questioned by Senator Pangilinan at that time in Pangilinan versus Cayetano. And the Supreme Court said, very strange decision really. The Supreme Court said the withdrawal requires Senate consent because it's a law. A treaty is a domestic law once it's consented by the Senate. So to repeal that law, you also need the consent of the Senate. But in this case, the Supreme Court said that the Senate did not object. First of all, you cannot create a law without the Senate participating. In other words, if you apply it to accession, if the president signs and the Senate does not do anything, that would mean that we become a member, we ratify. It requires an affirmative act to join or to withdraw. The Senate must give an affirmative act. A bill does not become a law by non-action. There has to be an affirmative act.
Wow. Yeah, strange. But before we let you go, Justice Carpio, kamusta na yung debate? Ano na nangyari?
Well, I proposed a topic. He did not agree. Marcoleta did not agree. And he presented his own topic, very complicated. So I said, let's just have a very simple topic. Is there a West Philippine Sea? So that's where it is now.
Okay. All right. We're happy to hear from you, and we're still awaiting if that debate will push through. Retired Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio.